So what made you convinced that he was cheating in that particular game? And by what method do you think he could possibly have been doing this?
Could you hear something? Was it like burnt? You're hearing vibrations?
You see his seat shift.
Yeah. You're smelling something? There's a whiff of something in the air?
I've definitely played some of my best blitz chess just listening to music.
Some wild Norwegian music? Like, Rammstein or something?
That's actually German, but...
It's been awesome talking to you, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. All right, Tony?
Yeah, fun times.
Fun times.
This is what happens when you force a 200 IQ chess genius to sit in a room with two bomb experts for over 2 hours. On the latest episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, world-famous Grandmaster Magnus Carlsen was the guest along with Austin comedy assassin Tony Hinchcliffe to discuss all things chess. Now, you might be wondering, why in the fuck was Tony Hinchcliffe on this podcast? And the answer is anal beads. But we'll get to that in a moment because if you don't know who Magnus Carlsen is, he's actually a legit genius. But we've seen our fair share of geniuses on JRE before, such as Terrence Howard, Billy Carson, Action Bronson, and Elon Musk, and this guy is no exception. However, unlike Terrence Howard, who showed signs of brilliance while still in his mother's womb, Magnus would peak later on in life at the age of 2 when he was able to solve complex puzzles before he could even read. Later on in life at the age of 13, he would achieve full Grandmaster status and then go on to become World Chess Champion at the age of 22, a title he would then go on to defend multiple times over a 10-year period. So basically, he's the genius alter ego of Jack Doherty. But all jokes aside, this episode of JRE was actually pretty good. In my opinion, it was probably one of the best episodes so far this year because there was absolutely zero political talk and little to no fart sniffing. But there was a lot of anal bead talk for some reason. And it's these awkward conversations that are the most entertaining for me personally. There's nothing better than listening to Rogan and Hinchcliffe flexing their toilet humor comedy brains in front of a genius and get absolutely nothing out of him other than an awkward smile and a nod. Incidentally, today I'm wearing my fresh new Bomb Expert t-shirt and hoodie, exclusive from the Podcast Cringe merch store. As most of you know, being a top 250 comedy assassin isn't easy. In fact, it's one of the hardest jobs in the world, right up there with podcasting and day drinking. But a true comedy assassin is also a bomb expert. Just remember, if the crowd isn't laughing loud enough, you're not shouting loud enough. So check out the links below or just head straight over to podcastcringe.com to get your Bomb Expert t-shirt and hoodie, as well as a bunch of other exclusive designs only available from the Podcast Cringe merch store. But like I was just saying, it was random as fuck to see Tony Hinchcliffe on this episode. He wasn't mentioned in the title or the description. His Twinkie horse face just appeared on screen at the beginning of the episode, and this was Joe's explanation for why he was there.
Tony Hinchcliffe is here, who's a gigantic chess fan and just creamed his pants yesterday when I told him you were coming in. And then immediately I said, you got to come with me. Well, you've always been a giant chess fan.
Well, it's actually a newer thing, but when I got into it, it was just everything. Now it's what I do right before bed. I fall asleep. Usually I fall asleep during actual games online on my phone.
You're driving him crazy.
Yeah. How could that happen?
I'm exhausted.
What do you do when you wake up?
I wake up and I look at the board and it said you resigned because I went over my time or whatever.
Yeah.
I just ran out of time. But what you will appreciate is that when I fall asleep playing chess, like when I fall asleep, I'm still playing the game in my dreams sometimes. And sometimes the game will go all night and it'll be like this never-ending game and pieces will pop back up that have already gone.
That sounds amazing. Like I would obviously that would never happen to me. And like I like to play a game of chess on my phone or my iPad. And then if something comes up, like my wife tells me like I have to be somewhere, I have to do something, it's like, can you just finish the game? I'm like, no, I cannot resign the game.
Right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously that's different though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't just resign. You got to ride that bitch out.
Yeah.
Having Tony Hinchcliffe on JRE with one of the best chess players in history just because he likes to play chess on his iPhone late at night before he goes to sleep is actually funny as fuck. It's almost as funny as doing a 5-hour podcast with a guy who thinks 1 × 1 = 2 and then bringing him back on for a follow-up podcast with an expert just to tell him that he's wrong. The best part for me, though, is that, like many of Rogan's non-comedy guests, I honestly don't think Magnus knew that Joe and Tony were comedians. I think a lot of pedestrian brain guests just think these guys are podcasters. Even Magnus Carlsen doesn't have the brain capacity to comprehend the true genius of Austin comedy assassins like Tony and Joe. But that certainly didn't stop Rogan from comparing his line of work to Carlsen's.
Well, that's a beautiful way to live your life. If people can find a thing like that in their life, that really is the key to an enjoyable life. We talk about it all the time at our comedy club where we're all in the green room. We're like, we are so lucky that this is actually what we do for a job. And pretty much everybody who's good at it is obsessed with it, and they think about it all the time. It's kind of the only way. But I'd need time off sometimes, because I think that's different, because it's always different ideas and different things you're working on. Sometimes you need time just to refresh your perspective.
I honestly couldn't agree more. Rogan taking 6 years off between his last 2 specials did him a world of good. It led to some of Rogan's most memorable jokes in his 2024 special Burn the Boats, such as being misgendered at the airport while being high, a bunch of pandemic jokes from 2020, and recycling material literally from 15 years ago. What are we doing here, B? Anyway, some of you may have heard of the 2022 cheating controversy involving Magnus Carlsen and Hans Niemann, or as I like to call him, Hans Free. After losing in their 3rd round matchup, Magnus accused Niemann of cheating, which led to some seriously whacked out theories about how exactly he cheated in that situation. It literally only took Rogan exactly 4 minutes to bring up the anal beads during this podcast, which honestly caught me off guard. Like, I knew he'd obviously bring it up, but at least let the guy warm his seat up a little bit first, you know, especially with Tony Hinchcliffe sitting next to you.
I need to know, the anal beads thing, is that a legitimate theory?
So it actually started in one of my friend's streamer channel that like one random guy made a comment about anal beads and he was like, yeah, maybe. It started taking the rounds in Reddit, and then Elon saw it, tweeted about it, and then obviously it blew up. But I really, really, really don't believe that has happened. Like, I think it has no connection to reality, but it just became a thing of its own.
So unfortunately, this young man, we'll explain the anal beads thing, but this young man is a very talented player, but does have a history of some shenanigans.
So it was pretty obvious that Magnus didn't want to entertain this theory. That was probably the most emphatic he was throughout the whole podcast. He wanted to make it clear that he didn't believe it, and he didn't want it to become a thing again, even though Elon Musk already made it go viral without a shred of evidence. But true to form, Rogan wouldn't let it go because it's such an outrageous way to cheat. And it obviously sounds funny, right? And one thing Rogan said later on, which Magnus agreed with, is that the cheating scandal actually created a lot of publicity for the game of chess in general and attracted a whole new generation of viewers, which is strangely homoerotic, right? Anyway, my point is, I don't actually think that Rogan knew who Magnus Carlsen was until he saw Elon's tweet and took it as gospel, and it was the one thing that Magnus really didn't seem like he wanted to talk about.
So what made you convinced that he was cheating in that particular game? And by what method do you think he could possibly have been doing this?
Could you hear something? Was it like burnt? You're hearing vibrations?
You see his seat shift.
Yeah. You're smelling something? There's a whiff of something in the air?
Yeah, I mean, that would have been the smoking gun, I suppose. But
Oh, that's so fucking good. Seeing Magnus's deadpan reaction to the toilet humor and then finally giving in with a nervous smile and a snide remark was worth the price of admission for me. Seriously, give this guy a few sets on Kill Tony and a couple of open mics at the mothership, and he'll hang up the chessboard and dedicate the rest of his life to crafting the perfect dick joke. Thank him, B.
So the anal beads thing, for people who don't know what we're talking about, the theory was that he had vibrating anal beads that would somehow or another, through some sort of code, explain to him the moves. What kind of code are you getting from inside your butt that you're like, okay, I got it?
Well, it would be like C4 or whatever. Like it could tell you by.
How would it say it in your butt, though?
Bam, 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 bam. Well, I mean,
It's Morse code?
I'd have to show you.
Luckily, I brought one.
Yeah, I have some in right now. No, it would be like it would buzz, right? It would buzz the letters and then the numbers that would indicate where you would move.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a sort of technological version of ways people have cheated before.
Yeah, that whole conversation really didn't go in the direction Rogan was hoping it to. Magnus was giving them absolutely nothing, which actually made me think, do they have green rooms at chess tournaments? Like, do all the chess grandmasters sit around roasting each other while they get high, slap each other's legs, and squeeze each other's nipples? Nah, maybe it's just an Austin thing. But I'll tell you what, for those of you who don't know, Magnus actually has a reputation for being super chill and not taking everything too seriously. He's kind of like this quirky genius who just wants to play chess, but doesn't really care about anything else.
If you want to listen to classical music or whatever.
You can do that?
Yeah.
So you can listen to Wu-Tang Clan while you play chess?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, playing blitz chess, listening to music usually helps me because, like, doing tasks that are more intuition-based, then that helps with the flow. I've definitely played some of my best blitz chess just, listening to music.
What do you
and
listen
sitting
to?
there bopping.
Bobbing.
I think...
Some wild Norwegian music, like
Yeah,
music.
Rammstein or something.
That's actually German, but they have some good songs.
Fuck, Tony really is a bomb expert. That reminds me of the time he had no idea about the Cloudgate sculpture in Chicago, which is also called the Bean, and so he got all butthurt and kept bringing it up in the next few episodes of Kill Tony, just to let everyone know how stupid it is, because he didn't know what it was. But like I was saying, Magnus seems heaps chill. He's into Norwegian rap music, which is actually fucking hilarious. This whole next segment went completely over Joe and Tony's heads. Oh man, you guys are going to love this.
My best chess has probably been Norwegian rap.
Norwegian rap, really?
Yeah.
What's a good Norwegian rap band that you could, a rap group that you could recommend?
There's a guy called Mr. Pimp Lotion and Oral B.
Mr. Pimp Lotion.
And Oral B. They're kind of... it's like a little bit ironic, but they're like doing like American like West Coast rap in Norwegian.
Oh, that sounds badass.
Okay, so Magnus didn't really explain that well there, which is what makes this next bit so good. Basically, there are these Norwegian rappers who are parodies of US West Coast rappers, so their whole shtick is that they're ironically gangster. That's why they have names like Mr. Pimp Lotion and Oral B. It's meant to be a piss take, right? Norwegian culture and West Coast rap culture are clearly worlds apart. There isn't that much to rap about in Norway, right? But Joe and Tony thought that they were serious. They didn't quite get that the whole thing is mostly a gag and that they're not serious rappers. Like, they don't actually think they're gangster rappers. It's more of a satirical dig at their own culture.
I actually did a song with
Mr. Pimp Lotion.
I actually did a song with those guys.
What?
What a great name. Mr. Pimp Lotion.
That's incredible.
Yeah, they did a show and they have this thing called Spanur, which is like a moisturizer mostly used for animals. But like this Mr. Pimp Lotion, like he's obsessed with that one. And somebody apparently stole that from backstage. They didn't know who it was, but they eventually found out and they made a song about it. And so they had a bunch of people like send in their verses.
Incredible the difference between America and Norway, what the rappers are rapping about. There's gang wars and shootings, and in Norway somebody's like, who stole my lotion?
Yeah.
That's what he's saying in
Don't
English.
make pull out the gun. It's
Yeah.
best that someone speak out. Who
And then-
stole the Spinol? Who stole my lotion?
Yeah. Basically, there's a bunch of verses, like people accusing each other, and then I randomly come in at the very end and solve the mystery.
Was it you?
Oh, it wasn't me.
All right, guys, get ready for Tony Hinchcliffe to start shitting on Norwegian rappers on Kill Tony, and for Joe to bring it up as a defining feature of Norwegian culture. Even Jamie caught on that it was all a gag and pulled up the lyrics for them to see on the screen, but Joe and Tony still didn't get it. It's like, yeah, dude, that's the joke. Magnus was laughing awkwardly, trying to understand why they didn't get that it's meant to be ironic. I know they're all just fucking around and having a laugh, but honestly, this episode really made me realize how lowbrow and juvenile Joe and Tony's comedy is. I know that Magnus is kinda dry and just likes to play chess 24/7, but seeing them interact with a super intelligent person really shows just how hacky they really are. It's like when Elon used to go on the podcast and Rogan's jokes would fall flat on their bald head. But all jokes aside, it actually took Rogan longer than I thought it would to bring up vitamins and supplements and, of course, his holy grail, nootropics. Joe Rogan has the most expensive piss in Austin, and he loves to tell everyone about it, even a 200 IQ chess genius.
Do you normally have a method of like when you eat, vitamins you take? Is there certain things that you do to optimize your clarity?
Yeah, like if I'm playing an early afternoon game, I try to eat like one big meal before that, which is generally like a big omelet with some kind of salad.
Do you ever mess around with vitamins or nootropics or anything like that? Things, nutrients that help memory?
No, I think I think it's a little bit about the way that I was raised. Like I never take medicine unless I kind of have to. I don't really take supplements or anything like that. So
I think it'd probably have an impact on you. I mean, it's extraordinary if you think about how good you are without it. Like any little thing that could give you a very slight edge. And I think that vitamins for sure give you a slight edge, particularly in nootropics. There's a bunch of different vitamins that have been shown through clinical trials to improve cognitive performance.
Okay, hold up. This guy was a fucking grandmaster at the age of 13. He was world chess champion at 22 and held that title for 10 years straight, defending it multiple times. And so Rogan says to him, hey man, you should try nootropics. I mean, fuck me dead. That is actually crazy. The company that sells Alpha Brain called Onnit, a nootropic that Rogan supposedly helped formulate himself, whatever the fuck that means, is being sued for misleading advertising and misrepresenting the health benefits of their product. I did a whole video covering the case over on Patreon and did a deep dive into the clinical study that Rogan was referring to there, which is one that the company relies on to make the health benefit claims for Alpha Brain, and not only is it misleading, but in some cases the placebo group performed better than the Alpha Brain group. For Rogan to try and get a chess genius onto Alpha Brain is wild. This coming from a guy who drinks all the time, even though the damage from just a few drinks a week is well known and documented. Just ask Bert Kreischer.
Here's the deal. 0 alcohol is better for you than any alcohol, but the cutoff, probably 2 drinks per week, should be the upper ceiling, beyond which
Is that a guy with
well,
no
there are a lot of
arms?
data now out of the UK Brain Bank that's showing that, the more you drink, for every additional drink you have per week, a little bit more brain atrophy, shrinking of the brain and loss of neurons.
My brain is firing hot. My brain is working so much better.
This is so good. This is so good.
That was our boy Bert when he supposedly quit drinking for a few months and felt amazing. Who knew? But of all the shit that Rogan takes to improve his cognitive function so he can be a better UFC commentator and a podcaster, all he really should be doing is drinking less. Now, don't get me wrong. I love a drink just as much as the next bloke at the bar. I'm not saying everyone should stop drinking and it should be banned. In fact, I'm drunk right now. Just saying that, though, actually makes me feel depressed. Fuck. I wish Bert was here, just to walk in the room with a bottle of champagne and tell us the machine story again. But for someone like Rogan who craps on about achieving your best mental state and performing at your best, it really makes you wonder how he can say all of that with a straight face and a whiskey in his hand.
on certain days, I sort of just accept that, my brain is not going to work as good, and it's frustrating, especially if you got a big game and know that you're starting down 2-0 because your brain is not working the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I feel that with podcasting all the time. And the real danger is if I do that, if my brain's not on full tilt and I'm talking to a scientist, and I'm like, we have to talk about quantum physics. Follow what you're saying because it's so esoteric. It's weird that the brain just doesn't always work exactly how you want it to.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It must be really frustrating when your brain doesn't work, huh?
I understand it, though.
I kind of
understand it. I understand.
It made sense.
to me, he's making me
sense.
believe.
You know, I saw a comment the other day on a Rogan clip that almost made me shit my pants from laughing. It said, Joe Rogan in another episode of taking a stance on something that could be ended with a Google search. That has to be the most accurate description of JRE I've ever seen. The sad part is that Rogan still takes the same stance even after the Google search. Anyway, make sure you check out the links below or just head straight over to podcastcringe.com and check out my new line of Bomb Expert merch, as well as other designs like Business Shark and Comedy Assassin. Otherwise, sign up to my Patreon via the link in the description for my longer form uncensored content, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel on YouTube while you're here. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.
Back when I was a wrestler in high school, some guys wouldn't shower, and it would be disgusting.